Hello.
So a few days ago, I uploaded a video called the new best Ball Lightning Sorcerer. With the clickbaity title, the clickbaity thumbnail. My thumbnail skills are absolutely ass, by the way. Um, that's just what every YouTuber does. It's all clickbait and stuff. Obviously, it probably was not the actual best. I'm not sure. I look at other people's builds and stuff, but I don't. I try not to copy them. I just kind of figure out like the general direction in which I need to take my builds, and then I hit the drawing board and figure it out myself. Sometimes my boards probably end up looking very similar to others because there's only so many ways that with a game with not a whole lot of options you can really make a build, right? But there was a guy who said he was having issues with mana regeneration during mobbing. Somebody sent me a video of a guy who actually hit 1,000,000 damage on the Ball Lightning Sorcerer, and it kind of just sparked something in me that I wanted to change and get to 1,000,000 damage on the Ball Lightning Sorcerer, but then also figure out how to fix the mana regeneration issues. And there was a guy who told me actually that the tactician was supposedly bugged and didn't actually supply the 10% multiplicative damage that it's supposed to after you use the defensive skills, so I changed that around as well. One of the more obvious changes I've done, if you saw the other videos, like Frostbolt is now my basic attack. But I'm just going to go ahead and stop rambling, and we're going to go over there to the build. I'm hoping this video is a little bit quicker than the other ones because the other ones ended up being 20 minutes, and I don't know how. Probably because I ramble like I'm doing right now. But let's go over to the build. Okay, as I stated, I haven't changed anything, literally not one thing about aspects or gear on this build. Paragon, very minimally changed. The main thing is messing around with the skill tree. But for anybody who didn't see the other video, I'm going to quickly go through the gear and the aspects that I chosen for this. When I actually just like go through the beginning of a dungeon, I actually just like to use the Oculus. Not tabbed in. There we go. I just like to use the Oculus because it's just really quick for farming. You get 15 rings to teleport, whatever. I cleared tier 100 with this fairly easily. It's not even a struggle. Even in 4-man groups, it's not really a struggle. I do have a Shaco. Okay. In the build planner for this, I will have a alternative to Shaco. It's legitimately just going to be a helmet that has all stats, max life, cooldown reduction, total armor, and then probably aspect of might. I don't think somebody else in another video complained that when you have Ubers, everything's easy. Shaco is not the be all. It's very simplistic. Adding 4 ranks to all skills, that's really nice and all, right? But I don't know if you know this, but adding ranks to skills adds a bunch of flat damage, which yes does scale with your multiplicative stuff, but it's not absolutely, it's busted, but it's not gonna triple your damage on its own. Okay. Mostly it's like, oh, I have aspect of might on my helmet without having to do a basic attack. I just have constant 20% damage reduction. That's the biggest thing of it for me. Raiment of the Infinite. So when you teleport, it sucks everybody in and then gives you +2 ranks of Glass Cannon, which Glass Cannon is multiplicative damage. Just flat multiplicative damage. Storm Swell on the gauntlets, and the gauntlets have attack speed, critical strike chance, lightning, critical strike damage, which that can be changed. The attack speed and the critical strike chance are really the only thing that matter significantly. And then up to 5% chance to restore 14% primary resource, or whatever number that you would get on yours if you decided to go with this build. And then with Storm Swell on it, when the enemies are vulnerable, and there's a couple of ways to make them vulnerable in this build. It's not like I don't have abundant amount of ways to do it, but you kill little mobs and typically elites without too much struggle. And then the making enemies vulnerable is when something is a struggle, and when you're doing bosses and things like that. Tibalt's Will, of course, every build uses Tibalt's Will because it's absolutely busted with 40% just like flat multiplicative damage, okay? That's the only thing on these pants that actually matter if you're not a rogue. Of course, in my opinion, you definitely want a high percent damage reduction from close, because the biggest thing this season I've noticed is, since we're all using Tibalt's Will on every single build, we're really, really squishy because our pants are typically, previously defensive. No total armor, no max life, no flat damage reduction. So you just have damage reduction from close. So you want a really good roll there. This has absolutely no damage reduction, which is also where, you would put like one offensive stat Total armor, damage reduction from close on your chest. Like, you just can't do that with this. So you're kind of, I mean, sorcerers are always been really squishy, but this one's exceptionally squishy. That's why you have to constantly use a defensive skill to have a barrier. Boots, Esu's Heirloom for the extra movement speed to work with Ravenous. Movement speed, critical strike damage, mana cost reduction, that's all really good. And then the increased critical strike chance is phenomenal, okay? The dagger, when I'm not using the Oculus, has accelerating on it because enchantment-wise, we use Chain Lightning, and that's a core skill, and attack speed directly correlates with damage in Ball Lightning builds. And then we have rubies in the armor and emeralds in the weapon slots. All stats, intelligence, mastery skill damage, and damage to close. To be honest, all stats, intelligence are the only things that really matter because mastery skill damage and damage to close. Okay, damage to close just has really good higher rolls. You don't want core skill damage. So, I mean, mastery skill damage to close, they're both flat damage. To be honest, you could put almost anything there, and it's not going to change a whole lot. Go over to the amulet. Chain of Disobedience. It's the only place that we have any kind of defensive aspect because it's the only place where we can fit it. And then we have plus 3 ranks to Devouring Blaze, plus 3 ranks to all mastery skills, total armor, movement speed. Pretty simple, basic stuff. I use Devouring Blaze instead of Glass Cannon for a couple of reasons. One, it actually does a slight bit more damage, and then also, you know, you don't get the whole part where you take a lot more damage than you should. We're going to go over to the first ring. Gravitational's on here. That's the thing that literally holds the build together because it makes your ball lightnings circulate. Is that the right word? Circulate? Either way, they circle around you. Critical strike chance, critical strike damage, lightning strike damage, or lightning critical strike damage, and resource generation. My resource generation is absolutely booty on here, but this is pretty basic. You can probably change one of the critical strike damages for something else like max life if you wanted to, and it's not really going to make a huge difference on the build. And then Tal Rasha is the new ring for sorcerers. Absolutely busted thing. You get, in this build, this is where I changed something. In the last build, we didn't have frost damage, okay? I used Frost Nova, but that doesn't actually do damage to anything, so you don't get the tick. So when you mix it with the infection vampiric power, you only proc 2 consistently and 3 elements when you're lucky, pretty much. Okay, this new version of the build, we have clearly Frostbolt. That will add the extra one, so I only have 13.5% multiplicative damage, but you get up to 60% multiplicative damage. And then lastly, Conceited on the focus, and the focus just like all critical strike chance, mana cost reduction, resource generation, cooldown reduction, just all supporting what's the word I'm looking for here? Supporting affixes. There we go. Where they just help you with, like, you get your resources are a little bit cheaper, or regenerate a little bit faster. Your mana is a little bit cheaper, and your cooldowns, which I think cooldown reduction is almost a little bit of a meme, but Conceited, you deal multiplicative damage when you have a barrier. You always have a barrier in this build. Vampiric power wise, nothing changed from the last video. We have infection here to get the poison damage for Tal Rasha's ring. Prey on the Weak to do more damage to vulnerable enemies. Metamorphosis to become unstoppable for the pants, and also put a vampiric curse on bosses and stuff so you can do this vulnerable damage. And then Ravenous, obviously the most broken thing for this build, where you get 40% of your total movement speed as an attack speed bonus for 6 seconds. When you do that, the Ball Lightning does more damage, and we'll get to that in a second. And then Moonrise, same thing, to add attack speed. And also, whenever you actually go over and complete the 5 stacks, you get a little bit of movement speed, which then correlates with Ravenous. But the little bit of movement speed's not a huge deal. Go over to abilities now, and the skill tree. Well, Blizzard gave me the middle finger in the middle of doing the skill tree, so here we are having to do it again with a little video cut here. I just disconnected from the server, but anyway, before we had Arc Lash, and we tried to use Flickering Arc Lash to gain some movement speed, to work with Ravenous to give us attack speed bonus, blah 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 blah. It's not that great in my opinion. I went with Frostbolt now so that I can proc that extra elemental damage on Tal Rasha's ring. It seems to do way more damage. And then we put 1 into here so we can get down to the core skills. 1 into Chain Lightning, and then I was wrong before. Destructive Chain Lightning is the best thing you can do for mana generation. I didn't have this issue with mana regeneration like some of the other people had with my build, but it definitely is better, way better than it was before with Destructive Chain Lightning, because you pick up the Crackling Energy, and then you have the passive that gives you mana for picking up Crackling Energy, and then we have 1 into Potent Warding. With only 1 into Potent Warding, we're 1.2% off of max on 2 of them, max on the rest. Literally just 1 Ball Lightning, and for 5 seconds you have max. A little bit more than max, because it adds the it increases your maximum resistance. But anyway, and then why does it do that? Just put you in a random place. We come down here to defensive skills. We have Flame Shield and Enhanced Flame Shield for the extra movement speed here. And then we have the damage reduction for using Teleport with 1 into Teleport. We have 1 into Elemental Attunement. Elemental Attunement's a little bit of a meme in my opinion. You don't proc it very often, but we have 1 point there because we have 1 point left over. And then Glass Cannon, of course, the flat multiplicative increased damage. And then I like to use Frost Nova. I know people like to use Ice Blades now. I like Frost Nova because I like going against the boss and they're just vulnerable for 6 seconds. That's just all it is. So that means we use Mystical Frost Nova. But anyway, come down here. We have 1 into Align the Elements just to get to these. Getting mana damage reduction for using 100 mana. Use 100 mana like it's nothing, so just constant 21% damage reduction. And then protection, where you get a barrier. This is a big part of the build that holds things together, because without the barrier you die a lot very easily. But everything you do in this build gives you barrier, so we're fine. No, the points over here. I took away the points that were in Precision Magic. By the way, since I have Shaco, I can use my enchantments without having to have a point into them. So take this point that I was just memeing about and put it into Frostbolt, or not Frostbolt, but Firebolt for the enchantments. We'll get to the, I forgot to show the enchantments. We'll get there in a second, but come down here. We put 1 into Inner Flames to get to Devouring Blaze, which is where you get 42% multiplicative increased critical strike damage towards burning enemies. They don't, it's not fire damage, it's just enemies that are burning, and if we use the Firebolt enchantment, everything's always burning. And then of course Ball Lightning. Who would have saw it coming, right? And then we go over here to the Wizard's Ball Lightning, and Enhanced Ball Lightning, by the way, is the thing that really cares about your attack speed, so that's why attack speed's very important in all Ball Lightning builds. Come down here. I used to have 3 into Shocking Impact. I have no idea why, but we have 1 into Static Discharge, 3 into Invigorating Conduit. Invigorating Conduit is the one where, with the Destructive Chain Lightning, you take up all the little crackling energy balls or whatever, and you get a bunch of mana for it. Since we use Frostbolt now, we do have 3 points into Hoarfrost. The Frost Nova chills them or freezes them, and then Frostbolt also chills them, so I figured a little bit of extra damage to like some of the like more stubborn elites and stuff are really good. You can't chill bosses unless they're stunned, so that doesn't really matter for that, but it matters for the little guys. This is where a big part of the mana regeneration comes into. I don't know why I didn't do this before, because I knew I could have, but I just like didn't for some reason. But Fiery Surge. And when you kill a burning enemy, your mana regeneration is increased by 45% for 3 seconds. That's absolutely insane, because everything is on fire and everything is burning. So to the guy who had a lot of issues mobbing, this is actually the solution. Unstable Currents, of course, because it's just like, I mean, increase your attack speed, and Crackling Energy doesn't consume. And then whenever you cast a shock skill, it conjures up random crap. Okay. I mean, it's what you do when you see the boss, and then they kind of just melt and die. 1 into Coursing Currents, and then we go to Electrocution and Conduction. Conduction just gives you the movement speed, because we like to Thum. And then Electrocution makes enemies deal less damage after you critically strike them with Shock Skill, which is just constant. And then lastly, I thought the day would never come when we got here, but Overflowing Energy or Veer's Mastery. You just switch these two back and forth depending on what you're doing. I do this when I'm farming and going through a dungeon. I'll switch to this for a boss sometimes if I'm in a big group. If I'm by myself, it doesn't really matter, so I don't bother to switch. And that's it for the skill tree. Well, we added Hoarfrost, we added Fiery Surge, We added the new Chain Lightning, Frostbolt. I mean, we changed quite a few things here, but you do a lot more damage now, and you make a lot more mana. And the survivability didn't take a hit, so I consider that a huge W. We're going to go over to the Paragon now, and absolutely pretty much nothing changed. We have Elementalist here, grabbing all this stuff. We have Enchantment Master. This is the same stuff, and then everybody puts Reinforced here. So I put Reinforced here because it's the only place that Reinforced makes sense. Actually, it makes sense here too, but we'll get to that later. We're going to come over here. What is this one again? We have Ceaseless Conduit. And then we have Destruction in here for the critical strike damage because the pathing is way too good for dexterity when you want to get as much dexterity as you can. Not everybody maxes this out. I disagree with that. I'd max it out because you're trying to do damage. So, then we come over here. Burning damage up here. What is the name of this board again? Burning Instinct. We grab the nodes up here. Let's see. This is where the only real change in the board was made. Since the guy told me that Tactician doesn't do the damage, a part of it doesn't work after using a defensive skill, we switched over to Unleash. So Unleash does 6.7% multiplicative damage. It's not a huge number. 6.7% mana regeneration, which helps the mana problem. Also not a huge number, but that's actually a pretty big deal because it stacks with the rest of your resource generation. So the rest of your resource generation is an additive, and then this is a multiplier. From my understanding, I'm not 100% on that, but that's what I was told. So technically it's pretty good, right? Right? And then the extra multiplicative damage, it's only 3% less than Tactician would offer, even if it did work, which isn't, I mean, it's damage, it's multiplicative damage, but it's still not the biggest deal. But this is where, this is what I decided to put here. Some people put Territorial here. My reasoning for this, I haven't showed the enchantments yet. Obviously we use Chain Lightning and Firebolt. Firebolt sets everything on fire whenever you hit stuff with anything, and then Chain Lightning launches Chain Lightnings after you spend 100 mana. I prefer to use Unleash or Tactician or anything like that in these boards because I want extra damage reduction from burning enemies. Sorry, I was very confused for a second. So adding the damage reduction from burning and amping it up a little bit, to me that's way better than having Territorial. Yeah. So you get extra damage here to burning enemies. So you do get a little bit of damage, like Territorial adds damage to close. That's cool. You get a little bit of damage here. But what I like is I'm squishy as hell. So the Chain Lightnings that automatically cast, when they travel across the screen and bop Bobby in the back, he's on fire, so I get damage reduction from him. It's just that simple. Damage reduction from close doesn't help with the guy with a bow, but them being on fire does because they have damage reduction from burning. So that's why I choose to do this instead of Territorial, in my opinion, because you don't really lose that much damage. But anyway, the rest of it, it's actually the same, the exact same. You can get rid of this and put it wherever you wanted, to be honest, because this is just additive damage, but it's here because I have 6 nodes and didn't know what to do with them. That's really it for the video. I kind of just wanted to put this together very, very quickly because I made boo-boos in my last video. It is not actually the best sorcerer build. But this one isn't either. But the title is still going to say it is. But it's still really, really good. So, but I appreciate anybody who stuck around this long. I don't know how many people actually watched the video and how many people just click the build planner, because if you just click the build planner, I don't blame you, because that's what I do. But I appreciate anybody who is still listening to me ramble here, and I hope everybody has a good day.